Hi there. I'm Pastor Lauren Paget, and I am with St. Paul United Church of Christ in Pekin, Illinois. I welcome all of you to our midweek reflection. During this time of uncertainty, I have heard from so many of you about how difficult it is to have had our entire lives just changed and turned upside down. Some of you are able to work at home, but you're negotiating how that is. Some of you have lost your jobs during this time, and some of you are trying to negotiate being a stay-at-home parent during this time, and maybe also juggling being an at-home worker too. These are new times. They're unprecedented. And there's a lot of suffering that has come along with this pandemic. We see the coffins line up and we hear the stories of tired doctors and nurses that actually have to do triage to take care of the most critical that can be helped instead of everyone, regardless of what their pre-existing conditions might be. It's hard times. We've had people who have graduated from 8th grade, high school, college, and they haven't had their ceremonies. They haven't had the walk to receive the diploma. It's different. It certainly is. And when some of you have asked me, where is God in the midst of this pandemic? You know, it's really not a new question for the human critter, for it's about the question of why is there suffering? Why is there suffering? And in philosophy, there is a triangle, a triad, that is called the inconsistent triad. And it was basically an attempt to disprove God in so many ways. Because first of all, if God is all-knowing and all-loving and all-powerful, then why does God allow there to be suffering? So if there is suffering, then God must not be all-powerful, all-loving, and all-consuming. So it makes this triad. Now, I want to say that is certainly one way to look at it, but it still doesn't answer the question of why is there suffering. And I don't think that we're asking the right question to then turn it around and say that there is no God. Now, that's my perspective. Certainly many of us have differences of opinion on this. But I want to read a scripture to you from chapter 9 out of the Gospel according to John. And I'll be reading verses 1 through 7. As he walked along, he saw a man blind from death. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus answered, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is still day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world." When he said this, he spat on the ground and made some mud with his saliva. Then he took the mud and placed it on the man's eyes and said to him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. Then he went and washed and came back, and the man was able to see. You see, those disciples were very much like us. We were questioning that there must have been something done wrong. There must have been some sin, some error, that God would put this wrath upon us, upon this man. And some of us are asking that now. Now, in no ways am I saying that I think that God made this disease to show God's wrath. I think it's part of human nature and life here on planet Earth. I think it just is. But I do hear the pain that all of you have talked to me about from time to time. And there is a disconnect. You see, suffering can either be because we see God punishing us, or we think that God is putting us to a test to strengthen our faith. But I think, as alluded to in this passage, it's not those kinds of questions that we need to be asking. It's about, where is God in this midst when we have a God, I am, that has told us that I am with you always. I am right here. The great I am is with you. You see, we have a God that allowed his Son to come in human form and also remain completely divine, so that Jesus would take on all the feelings of humanity, all the emotions, all the experiences, all the trauma, all the suffering. And there would be more compassion. More compassion. So I think that the question to ask us is, if God is indeed with us during this time of suffering, how then can we more fully connect to the heart and mind of God that leads us to compassion? That leads us to compassion. And in Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10, we hear these words: "Don't fear, because I am with you. Don't be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will hold you with my righteous, strong hand." This is the promise that we have of a God that is indeed with us in good times and bad, in suffering and in sorrow, as well as joys and celebrations. I ask you, how can you and I better connect to the heart and mind of God that is a compassionate and empathic God, so we may continue to be a source of that hope, that empathy, and that compassion with all who are working and suffering during this time. I hope you've been blessed today, and I want you all to know that I'm praying for you all.